Hello everyone, my name is Kelly Johnson and I'm a Curriculum Officer at NCFE. My background is vocational education and I have 15 years of experience of working in the FE sector in various roles including a teacher, a curriculum leader and a curriculum manager. I specialise mainly in the subjects of sport, health and fitness, and I have educated young people from level 1 to foundation degree level, including A levels. My role is to support centres through the planning, onboarding and CPD processes for NCFE/cash qualifications, but in particular the V Cert qualifications with a focus on promoting and advancing learning. You're very welcome to this webinar, and in today's session we will examine the external assessment preparation and revision strategies in the subject area of health and fitness. The plan for this webinar is to firstly provide you with an overview of the external assessment, including the assessment objectives and weighting, the type of questions and grading. I'll describe the external assessment regulations, including the timetable, specific instructions, and the process that is available for access arrangements and special considerations. I'll then explain the resources and support that are available to you and your centres. I'll also explain some of the revision strategies and tools that are available, but by all means, this is not an exhaustive list. Lastly, there will be an opportunity to share the strategies you use and ask any further questions that, as I've already said, will be answered after the webinar. Before I do go through the external assessment overview, I'd just like to do a quick poll on how confident you're currently feeling with the preparation and revision for the external assessment. 1 being no to little confidence and 10 being very confident. Okay, we do have the majority of votes, so I'm going to just close that poll. I'm going to share with you the results of the poll. Many thanks everyone for the poll for taking part in the poll, and the results show, and as my expectation was for the first question, was that you'd all be at different stages in relation to your confidence levels. And I do hope that by the end of the webinar you are feeling more knowledgeable and confident about the preparation and revision for the external assessment for the level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness. So firstly, I'm going to take a closer look at Unit 1, the external assessment. Firstly though, I'd just like to go through our approach to awarding for 21-22. The Technical Award qualifications have an external assessment that must be sat on a set date and time at your centre. External assessments will go ahead in the academic year of 2021-22 unless public health measures deteriorate, in which case this will be reviewed by the government. Previously, where assessments were timetabled for a set date and time, we have updated our assessment variation process to allow centres to use additional test centre locations. Where possible, we have now implemented further adaptations and include added additional assessment opportunities to support learners. So in the 21-22 academic year, students will be permitted up to 2 retake opportunities for external assessments. So that means they will have an external assessment opportunity in each exam series. That is autumn, which is November, spring, which is March, and then there is additional window in the summer, which is in June, and this date will be confirmed in the external assessment timetable. Also, the provision of advance notification of test topics where possible. This will support with the preparation for the assessment and allow centres to manage the impact of learning loss in assessment preparation. But please note though, we are still waiting for confirmation of details from Ofqual and DFE on whether this adaptation can be implemented or not. Assessment opportunities where students received results based on teacher assessed grades, tags, and centre assessed grades, CAGs, do not count towards these retake opportunities. For further information, please see our updated external timetable guide, which is available on our website on your Qual Hub page. The external assessment will be in the form of a written external examination, which will assess the learner's knowledge and understanding of content from Unit 1. The Level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness covers 5 assessment objectives. The first 3 are about using and demonstrating knowledge and understanding, and it is these that will be in the external assessment. A variety of assessment styles will be used, including multiple choice, short answer, and extended response questions. This will enable learners to demonstrate their breadth of knowledge and understanding of the subject and ensure achievement at the appropriate level, including stretch and challenge. Questions will be written in plain English and in a way that is supportive and accessible to all learners of all abilities. As far as possible, real-world scenarios and contexts which are relevant to the sector will be used. And this is to engage and stimulate learners under examination conditions and to facilitate the drawing out of a wide range of knowledge and skills developed throughout their learning. All questions will be compulsory, with available marks clearly identified. And the written external assessment will be carefully constructed following a rigorous quality control process to ensure that the assessment is valid. Unit 1 has 48 guided learning hours and the external assessment lasts an hour and a half. It has a total of 80 marks and there are assessment opportunities in November and March of each year. But obviously, as I've just previously mentioned, there is an extra one this year in June, which is their final grade. You will need to ensure your learners are registered on the qualification before they can be booked onto the external assessment. And the external assessment timetable contains key information such as the date and the time of the external assessment and the expected results release date. It will also tell you the cut-off date for booking your learners for the external assessment, and this is usually about 2 weeks before the external assessment. Please do note though that there are late fees that can be incurred if learners are registered late. And as I've already said, for 21-22, learners will be permitted up to 2 retake opportunities for external assessments, and we have added the additional assessment opportunities, and these dates again will be found in the external assessment timetable. For health and fitness, 45% of the marks in the external assessment are for recalling and showing knowledge and understanding, whereas the higher order thinking of analysis and evaluation will account for 25% of the marks. This allows the assessment to cover both level 1 and level 2 learners, and the style of questions, as I've said, is a mix of short answer, multiple choice, and longer response questions. I'm just kind of, while I'm going through these slides, I'm just keeping my eye on the question box. And I know I said that unfortunately we'll not be able to answer live questions, but there are just a few that I can answer. There's one come through from Kevin that yes, there should be audio. So I hope that that does get sorted, because I have checked that everyone can hear me and the majority of people say that the audio is available and is good. So I hope you get that sorted, Kevin. And Karen has just said that she missed the beginning. Did you say that learners have to? Yeah, they have. Learners do have 2 resit opportunities. So essentially there are 3 opportunities. If they take the exam in November, they have another 2 opportunities. So there's a November opportunity, a March opportunity, and also a June one. And these dates can be found in the external assessment timetable. Okay, yes, there are 2 attempts, Luke, for the exam. So there are 3 opportunities this year. I'm not quite sure exactly when the exam date is for November, but it can be found on the assessment timetable. Again, the pre-release topics, like I said, we are still waiting for confirmation from Ofqual and DFE whether these adaptations will be implemented. And as soon as we get confirmation, we will update centres via customer newsletter and our social media channels. Okay, Karen's also putting that it's 17th of November. Okay, thanks, Kevin. I'm really pleased to know that you've sorted your sound. Yes, Luke, 3 dates, but essentially you could sit all 3. So this year an opportunity is, so we're saying 2 resits, but there are 3 opportunities to take the exam. So you get a first attempt and the opportunity of 2 resits, so essentially 3 opportunities. Okay, I'm going to pause on the questions there because, like I said, I've got a lot to get through and we do have a lot of attendees on the webinar. But please do be rest assured that any questions that do pop up, I will answer them in a timely manner after the webinar. So as far as possible, like I've said, real-world scenarios and contexts which are relevant to the sector will be used. All questions should be attempted and available marks are clearly identified. The external assessment will be in the form of a written examination, which will assess the learner's knowledge and understanding of the content from Unit 1. And there are 3 main types of questions on the external assessment. The first one, like I've said, is multiple choice, and these are usually worth 1 or 2 marks. Multiple choice questions cover mainly the AO1, like this one from the health and fitness on the location of the bone in the upper leg. The second type of question is short answer, and they are usually around 4 marks. Short answer questions, such as this example, ask learners to outline the structure of capillaries and explain how this helps them to perform their function. And the third type of question is extended response. Extended response questions are usually worth 6 marks or more, such as this one, which is to discuss whether an individual who is described as fit can also be described as healthy. The look of the external paper will contain how many marks it's worth, so 4 in this case. They are written in plain English as much as possible to ensure it's accessible by all learners. And bolding is used to highlight important aspects such as command verbs and other key words, like this example where explaining is bolded. Key or command words are used in terms of question structure and expectation. For example, identify is a single word or short response, describe is a short sentence response, and explain is a response with expansion, and so on. For the extended response questions, the marking is laid out in bandings or levels. In each banding, the learners need to demonstrate all 3 of the assessment objectives to be successful. So, Band 1 needs AO1, 2 and 3, which is shown, and Band 2 needs AO1, 2 and 3 as well, but more detail. And Band 3 is the highest level, so the assessment objectives must be strongly demonstrated. Here is a generic example. So if this question was a 9-mark question, then level 1 or band 1 would be worth 1 to 3 marks. Level 2 or band 2 would be 4 to 6 marks, and level 3 or band 3 would be 7 to 9 marks. And as you can see on this slide, in band 1 for AO1, learners must recall and communicate basic knowledge and understanding from a limited range of health and fitness concepts, principles, skills and techniques, and subject-specific terminology is basic and consistent. Whereas in Band 3, for Assessment Objective 1, learners must recall and communicate comprehensive knowledge and understanding from a wide range of health and fitness concepts, principles and techniques, and subject-specific terminology is used accurately and consistently throughout the project. The same principle is applied for each assessment objective and the banding that can be given to determine the marks awarded. Next, we'll have a look at the grading of the external assessment. The uniform mark scale is a method used to standardise the marking of papers across multiple exam windows by converting the raw mark out of 80 into a UMS score. The final grade in the external assessment is determined by converting the raw mark into a maximum UMS of 160. A minimum of 24 UMS is needed to get a level 1 pass, and a minimum of a level 1 pass is required in both the external and synoptic project to obtain an overall grade. Next, I'm going to talk you through the external assessment regulations. On QualHub, there are 4 different tabs at the top of the page. In Policies and Documents, in the Policies and Documents tab, this is where you'll find key documents including the assessment regulations, and the regulations in that section are for the internal and external assessments. We are a member of the Joint Council for Qualifications, or JCQ, But for 21-22, we are only partially aligned to their policies and processes concerning external assessment regulations. For the external assessment, there is a document called the Regulation for the Conduct of External Assessment. This is a set of generic instructions regarding preparing for the external assessment, administering the assessment, and what to do after the assessment has been completed. It includes information like the safe and secure storage of the assessment papers, the start and end time of assessments, which can be changed by 30 minutes, and steps needed if you need a larger time change, the invigilation of the external assessment, what the invigilator should do, and how to position the desks, etc. For 21-22, this document has been closely aligned to the equivalent JCQ Instructions for Conducting Examinations document, but there are still significant differences for some of our qualifications. Therefore, it's best if this document is read by anyone involved with the external assessment, as if there was a concern raised about the conduct of the external assessment, then the quality assurance team would need to investigate. So the more people that are familiar with these regulations, then the smaller chances are of that happening. Please note as well that from 21-22 onwards, it is our intention to fully align with JCQ in this regard, although given the nature and complexity of some of our qualifications, there may be appendices or annexes with additional information that supersede content within the main document. The next document is the Qualification Specific Instructions for Delivery, or QSID, and it gives specific information for the different qualifications unless reasonable adjustments are in place. For example, if the assessment needs to be invigilated or supervised, if the use of the internet is permitted, and so on. For all subject areas in the Level 1/2 Technical Award V Cert, the same rules apply, which are: the external assessment papers will be delivered and securely returned to us. There's no online option available. The external assessment lasts an hour and a half and is on a set day and time. The learners don't need internet or computer access to complete the external assessment. Learners need a black or blue pen and a ruler, with pencils and calculators being optional. As the external assessment is on a set date and time, it is important to know where the external assessment timetable is. When you click on the Delivering Learner Support tab, you will find the external assessment timetable, which includes, like I've said, cut-off dates for registering learners and the date for when results will be available. Your learners, once registered, again, can be booked onto the external assessment via the portal, and it is usually the centre's exams officer that does this. The other useful section is the forms section, which I will come on to shortly. So, like I've said, you do need to have your learners registered before you can book them onto the external assessment. First, if we look at the external assessment timetable for 21-23, you will see the cut-off date for booking your learners onto the external assessment. If you book your learners after this date, then late fees will be incurred. Then there is an assessment date and time, and as I mentioned, you can change the start date by 30 minutes, so please do check the regulations. We also have the results release date, which is when you will find out how well your learners did. And as I've already mentioned, this year learners are permitted up to 2 retake opportunities for external assessments. So to support your learners further, we have put in place additional assessment opportunity in the summer. It is useful to be aware of the form section, like I've just mentioned on the previous slide, and I'm going to highlight some of the key forms within this section. As I mentioned earlier, if the external assessment regulations aren't followed, then we need to be informed, which can be via the malpractice or maladministration forms. If you do miss the cut-off dates, then you will need to complete the late entry forms. If any of your learners need extra time, a scribe, etc., then the access arrangements and reasonable adjustment forms needs to be submitted. This year, instead of noting us via a form on our website, from September, centres can complete details of any access arrangements and reasonable adjustments at the point of registration in the NCFE portal. Once the relevant details have been submitted, they will stay with the learner across all qualification registrations and all future external assessment bookings. The request for special considerations is after the assessment has been taken. It is for when some adverse circumstances could have impacted on the learner's ability to demonstrate their usual level of attainment, for example, illness or bereavement. And the request for assessment variation is when you need to vary the assessment from, for example, the published assessment date, the published assessment time beyond the permitted 30 minutes, or change or extend the assessment site from your current approved location. Now we'll take a closer look at the resources and support that are available to you and your centres. The key area for support will be QualHub. qualhub.co.uk will be your primary go-to where you can search for all our qualifications and access to specification, assessments, teaching materials, regulations and much more. You can begin by typing your qualification subject area or just type in the qualification code and it will give you a list of suggested qualifications. Using actual assessment material is a good way to make revision effective, and the material I'm going to show you now is also available free of charge. We do have end of topic tests which are available for health and fitness and contain multiple choice questions and answers. For every qualification, you will find past or sample external assessment papers. You will also find the mark schemes and they will say which assessment objectives are being addressed by which question. Furthermore, the Chief Examiner's reports, which can be found in the assessment materials also on QualHub, does provide an insight on how learners perform nationally on different questions, for example, which questions had strong answers, which were answered incorrectly, and what were the common errors which can help inform your future teaching and/or revision. There are some external assessment preparation exercises for different questions, but mostly for the extended response questions. For the health and fitness qualification, extended response questions, there are worksheets that also include model answers which can be used to improve learners' achievement. The example here is a 9-mark question about muscle fibres, and there are some tips about how to address it, as well as different activities the learners can work through, such as mind mapping, organising their knowledge into tables, and so on. These can be useful for the external assessment preparation and revision, and determining which methods your class or learners find most effective. We also have past and sample projects which can be accessed, and we have sample learner portfolios. Due to the content crossover with the synoptic project and the external assessment, some of the exemplar portfolios can be used for revision, and I will talk a little bit more about this later in the webinar. In the free to download teacher materials, there is also a workbook that can also be used as a revision tool. iAchieve and GCSE Pod are useful third-party sites which have been endorsed by NCFE. They both specifically cover the NCFE Level 1/2 Technical Award in Health and Fitness. iAchieve is an online learning platform which has content specifically designed for the Health and Fitness Technical Award. GCSE Pod contains a series of short videos or pods summarising aspects of the curriculum. It allows you to teach and assess the learners very easily so you can monitor their progress and provide individual interventions if needed. Okay, so now I'm going to start briefly with revision strategies that are the most effective according to the research. And what I'd like to do at this point is actually just launch a quick poll so you can let me know what you think is the most effective. Okay, I'm just going to close that poll off. We seem to have as many responses as I think we're going to get. So if you just bear with me, I will share the results of what's come through. Now, as expected, I did think there were going to be a mixture of responses in relation to which ones you thought were the most effective. But in summary, all or a mix of these techniques can be effective according to learning styles, stages, or revision, and so on. So, based on that poll then, I just wanted to then just explain a little bit about the research behind that particular poll. Now, John Dunlosky, Professor of Psychology at Kent State University, examined the efficacy of 10 learning strategies from multiple research sources and found that only 2 were shown to be very effective. And as most people did say, in majority, active recall and spaced or distributed practice were the only ones that were demonstrated to be very effective in a wide array of situations. Now, this isn't to say that those other methods aren't effective, it's just that these 2 are the most effective and have the most evidence behind them to support the effectiveness claim. For tests, exams and quizzes, active recall can involve 2 learners, for example, reading and revising a piece of text. The first learner decided to reread the text a second time, but learner 2 decides to quiz herself on what has been read. As the research suggests, the second learner who is undertaking active recall will perform better. Furthermore, the research also shows that rereading isn't as an effective strategy. The second strategy that has been demonstrated to be very effective is distributed mass practice instead of mass practice. Mass practice is when the revision is done in one continuous session with little to no breaks. Spaced or distributed practice is when sessions are spread out. So for example, if the same length of time is being dedicated to the revision, say 3 hours, by spacing the sessions out will have a most positive impact on performance over mass practices. Highlighting was one revision strategy strongly favoured by learners, but in practice doesn't contribute to high performance. And in the words of Professor Dunlowski, he said that when students are using a highlighter, they often focus on one concept at a time and are less likely to integrate information they're reading into a larger whole. However, highlighting can be a good starting point, but it does need to be built upon and active recall added to make it as effective as possible. So not particularly helpful as a revision strategy, but it can be used as a first step towards further study. Now I'm going to show you a few of the strategies and activities that might help to boost your learners' external assessment performance. Whilst I do talk through some of the key principles of each strategy or activity, please do make use of the notes and comments section in your participant session handbook to reflect on what strategy or activity you would be interested in trying out, or how it could be applied to your daily teaching practice or the revision of a key content or topic. So one strategy that I've used all the time when beginning external assessment preparation and revision with my learners for an external assessment was to get them to rank their own knowledge and understanding of the key topics of the unit. I would provide an overview of the key topic headings from the unit and then the subtopics, like this example on the skeletal system. I would then ask them to use a RAG rating, so red, amber, green, or a traffic light system first of all of the subtopics, and then provide a RAG rating overall for the main key topic. Then I would ask them to think about an action plan and make a note of some ways they could improve their RAG rating. I also included a comment section for them to add anything further, like a date to action by, any additional resources that they may need, and if it did work well, or if not, why not, and so on. Please do remember though that students are often not the best judge of their own revision and how effective it may be or not be. But by getting students to rank their own knowledge of their topics being revised, they deploy the important metacognitive strategy of evaluating their learning. Though they will be likely to be inaccurate, even over-optimistic in their judgments of their knowledge and learning, but it still helps students better collaborate their revision and monitor their ongoing progress. You could teach your learners techniques such as mnemonics to help them remember difficult information. This ensures they are less likely to experience cognitive overload, allowing them to move onto higher level thinking. You could use expression or word mnemonics such as ROYGBIV to remember the colours of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo and violet. And the same thing could be remembered in a mnemonic sentence such as Richard of York gave battle in vain. My example mnemonic is for the functions of the skeletal system excuse me, and are please send Susan more blue money. And this represents the functions of the skeletal system for protection, shape, support, movement, blood production, and mineral storage. Another way of using active recall is the use of flashcards. In this case, I've got a health and fitness question on one side and the answer on the other. It would be good to start flashcard production from the beginning of the course. So for example, every week or month or half term, learners are to produce flashcards on what they have learned. They can then use those flashcards as lesson starters and/or plenaries every so often. This way, they will have built up a bank of flashcards by the end of the course, and they will have done some distributed practice by using them in lessons, and it takes practically zero teaching planning time to implement. Graphic organisers help us to consciously improve our thinking process. They assist us in organising our thoughts, create connections, think more deeply, and help us visualise processes and procedures. By using a graphic organiser, we are more effectively thinking about our thinking. Examples of graphic organisers could include mind maps, flowcharts, spider diagrams, and for example, a mind map could be created for the principles of training and the methods of training. A large body of evidence shows that peer explanation benefits student learning. In short, peer teaching or explanation occurs when students, by design, teach or explain key concepts or topics to other students. Peer teaching is one of the best ways to master a particular subject. It is a method of teaching where a student instructs another student, wherein the former will be an expert and the latter a novice. The student teacher can pose a challenging question to students. Students answer the question individually. Students then work with a partner in the class to discuss their answers, and finally students answer the question again. Through the direct interaction between students, peer teaching promotes active learning as well as participation within themselves. And there is a saying that to teach is to learn twice, and this method paves the teacher-student to also revise the topic again. Student teachers enhance their own depth of knowledge in the topic by instructing others. As an example, the first step would be teaching and demonstrating as normal. You would then pair up the learners that you see fit, so for example, similar or opposite ability, fixed and growth mindset, or male and female, etc. You will have two sets of model answers, so each student in the pair gets a different set. And then learners will study their model answer for, let's say, 5 minutes. And then the learners then explain the model answer they have and justify why the answer is correct. Or you could prepare model answers that contain errors or missing information, and the learners have to explain what else is needed. Now you can give the learners their own problem or question to work on. A variation of peer instruction is note-taking pairs. To engage students in note-taking pairs, periodically interrupt a class lecture to ask students to compare their notes with those of a classmate. Next, encourage students to talk about both the content and the format of their notes. And finally, ask for volunteers to show and discuss the merits of different note-taking approaches. The technique that I have used for assessment objective 1 is for the recall type questions was to give my learners a set of questions for homework, say 10 questions for example, like classed as like the minute test. I would tell them that the next lesson there was going to be a quick starter quiz of just 5 questions, and those 5 questions were on the homework sheet. I'd display the questions on the board and the learner would answer them in their books with us or self-peer assess them. In terms of quiz creation, you could also get your students to design quizzes to share amongst the class. This could be done on paper, or you could use a free online tool such as Quizlet or Hot Potatoes. In the strategy of just a minute, this is a long-term favourite of mine, and it takes the classic radio game and adapts it to almost any topic, test, or examination revision term. And put simply, students have to talk for a minute on a given term or topic, no pauses and no hesitations. Slips or repetitions or micro pauses lose a life, and therefore 3 strikes and you're out, so it does make it quite challenging. This strategy harnesses the self-explanation effect. So in short, if you can elaborate on a topic and explain it well, you have retrieved it from memory, a good revision act, as well as likely consolidating it too. Some other generic ones can include a 6x6 grid. In each square, you can write a question or get learners to produce one of their own. Then a learner rolls the dice to get 2 numbers, a number of the row and a number for the column, and then learners have to answer that question. Alternatively, you could have keywords on each square and learners have to come up with a definition or a question for that word. Or they roll in the order to have 2 words and they need to link them together, building in some self-explanation as mentioned previously as a promising technique. And there are a wide range of options available in using this grid. I do highly recommend using past papers for revision with your learners, and it is an effective recall method. They help learners to become familiar with the structure of the paper and the language they use. Learners will probably already be used to the vocabulary from the learning in the classroom, but it's good to get themselves familiarised with past papers so they know how everything is laid out on the external assessment day and they don't stress out over it. In some external assessments, some extra information might be printed in the paper, such as equations for sciences and mathematics. Again, it's good to know where these will be in the paper. Once you've done a couple of past papers, you know the layout of the questions. Generally, the paper will start with the lower mark questions and work up, but it's good to know that so you don't have to write an essay, long answer for a 2-mark question, and not have enough time for the 10-mark question later in the paper. It's best for learners to practice completing the paper under external assessment conditions. The benefits of completing the paper in this way is that they can work out how much time they will have for each question. Past papers can also be completed at home in a quiet space, and they could ask a parent, sibling or friend to act as an invigilator and tell them how much time they have left. From our website, you can also download a mark scheme and Chief Examiner's report for each past paper. This way, you or the learner can mark the work and see where the marks lie and what grade they would get. Learners will also understand the different types of answers that are required and can use this to structure their answers. Using the mark scheme, learners can refine their answering skills and ultimately save time in the external assessment. If learners' revision notes are all in bullet points, then completing past papers is a good way to practice putting that information that they have learned into paragraphs. Being able to communicate their knowledge clearly is just as important as knowing the knowledge itself. And once the paper has been completed, it will need to be marked, and learners can also mark their own work using the mark scheme and then analyse their result, or they can ask a peer to do this. Teaching your learner to carefully analyse the breakdown of an external question is a vital skill. I had my learners underline, circle or highlight the context or scenario of the question to ensure they referred to this setting. So in this question, it is the muscle fibre types and the specificity of training. They would also highlight the key ask of the question. What content or knowledge do they need to demonstrate? So in this one, the differences in short distance sprinting and long distance running. And the command words to ensure that they're fully answering the question. So in this question, it is evaluation. And finally, having your learners write key notes around the question to remind them what they need to include before fully organising their thoughts on the page. External assessment wrappers are worksheets containing reflective questions that help students to think about their performance in a test or external assessment. You could give them to your students both before and after they receive their results and feedback. The worksheets can be given out before they receive feedback and should ask them to think about how they're prepared for the external assessment. So for example, what study strategies they used. Those given out after the feedback should make the learner reflect on the mistakes they made and how they could prepare differently to ensure greater success in the future, making them strategic learners. And wrappers work because they are time efficient, The learners are doing the task anyway. It only adds a few minutes to a task. Metacognition practice is built into the task. Learners are self-monitoring in context. Feedback on accuracy can be built in, and feedback is immediate. And support can be gradually faded out, and in just 3 lessons, most learners are successful on their own. And these minor interventions can significantly change behaviour. And as a side note, you could also adapt and use this method as an assignment wrapper. This is another example of active recall, and it can also include higher order thinking skills with learners evaluating and justifying their decisions. In this example, we have learner evidence of part 1 of task A, where the learner has defined the term body power and body composition. You could get learners to analyse that section of the task, or as a whole, and get them to decide what is good, what needs improvement, maybe even what grade they would give it, and add or improve that model answer. Learners could then swap their evaluations with each other, compare and discuss them. David Newland in 2013 said that exemplars can provide information, skills, content, and messages in a way that no other teaching methodology can. Exemplars are a very useful way in which students can be helped to gain a firm understanding in a concrete, contextual, and non-threatening fashion of exactly what is required of them in order to succeed to their desired level of achievement. There are many different types of feedback that teachers can provide to their students, a common one being model answers or exemplars. A model answer is an ideal response to a question. It is an example of what would receive full marks and helps teachers demonstrate to students how to include the key elements of a topic into an answer. Model answers are typically used so that students can compare their own work to them and assess their strengths and weaknesses. This means that teachers don't have to provide individual feedback. And of course, model answers can definitely be helpful when coupled with personal feedback. They can act as a useful reference point for students when they are writing essays, demonstrating the ideal layout, format, and content, and can help learners with their structure. However, specific comments tailored to a learner's work will guide them to make the necessary changes to succeed in the future. Students may find it easier to revise from model answers. If students are struggling when it comes to external assessment preparation, model feedback can be a particularly useful revision resource. And this further indicates that combining the strengths of both types of feedback is an effective way to make the most of a learner's learning process. For health and fitness, on the qualification specification page in the support materials tab, you will find the extended response question exercises. The first one being short tasks to prepare to answer the question, and the second includes answers at different bands with supporting commentary. There are also then some smaller follow-up activities that can be completed by the learners. Another method, that's a quite simple technique that I've used, is called an interpretation grid. It is quick, easy, and applicable to almost any lesson or topic. All you need is a simple 4-square grid, an image, and a list of questions or prompts that can help lead your discussion from level 1, which is knowledge, to level 6, which is evaluation. So how does it work? You begin with a 4-square grid, and you can draw one on the board or create an electronic document, or your learner can create one. You can use the 4 quadrants to approach the extended response questions as well. You place the extended response question in the center, and this question we have seen on a previous slide is about the muscle fibers, and the 4 boxes are the key aspects that need to be included within the question. So the first quadrant is for the relevant knowledge, and for this question it would be all about the muscle fiber types and specificity of training. The second quadrant is relating to its context of the question, so in this case short distance sprints and long distance running. In the third and fourth quadrants for the evaluation and conclusions, such as the different characteristics of muscle fiber types and which are suitable to short distance sprints and long distance running, and why these link to the training methods. Not all students will have an answer for each of the levels, but participating in the class discussion will encourage learners to process their thinking at a higher level. And if you use this same technique frequently, you will begin to notice which learners are using HOTS and which ones could use a little scaffolding to get there. A rubric is a performance-based assessment tool. Teachers often use rubrics to gather data about their learners' progress on a particular assignment or skill. Simple rubrics allow students to understand what is required in an assignment, how it will be graded, and how well they are progressing towards proficiency. Rubrics can be both formative, which is ongoing, and summative, final assessment tools for evaluating written work, projects, oral presentations, or in any other class assignment. To help learners address these types of questions, then you can produce checklists for learners to use. And this could also help if you have learners peer or self-assessing. And as the same generic statements are present on the mark scheme for the different assessment objectives, you can use them and make them more learner-friendly. You can include also sections after each statement for comments to be included too if needed. Okay, so I'm going to finish off now by looking at some of the technological tools that you may find useful for revision. During the course of lockdown and home learning, many of you, I'm sure, have become more familiar with the use of Google Docs and Google Forms. I'm going to go through one way of using it to create quizzes or even homework. When you start a new form, you can choose what type it is from multiple choice, checkbox, drop-down menu, and more. And if you click on the Settings tab, you can choose to make it a quiz, whether they see their results immediately or later, whether they can see the correct answer, and so on. One option for the health and fitness is to use the end of topic quizzes that we have available on your subject page and copy it into the form and select the correct answer. And as we know that feedback is vital for learner achievement, you can add feedback to the quiz, and this will allow you to add feedback for incorrect answers as well as the correct answer. Another one is Padlet.com, and this is best described as an online bullet board. You can choose from many different layouts, and the shelf could be useful if you want to put images, links, videos, and more into different categories or headings. With a free account, you can make up to 3 Padlets, and this was correct as of June 2021. You could use Padlet for the upload of ongoing learner work, allowing for collaboration and feedback. Learners can have discussions on there, or you could let them get them to include links to the Google Form quizzes that you had them make, or their web pages with insert learning content, or just have learners make their own Padlet and share it with you. EdPuzzle is another online tool, and it is a website that allows you to add content to online videos. You can search and add content to videos from YouTube, Khan Academy, TED Talks, or a video that another teacher has created. If you use Google Classroom, you can link your class to EdPuzzle. And you can also search for a range of different videos on what topic you would like. And there are already some ready-to-use ones available too that have been created by other teachers. You can also add multiple choice questions to certain parts of the video, or you can add open-ended questions or use that option for discussion boxes to elicit learners' current thinking. Or you could add voiceovers or post-it notes to sections of these videos. You can also edit the videos by cutting or trimming certain parts of the video too. And when you are finished with your rating, you can then assign it to your learners, and you can even prevent learners from skipping through parts of the video. This way, you can assure that they have to watch the full video. You can also check their progress in real time while they learn at their own pace. Flipgrid is a free social video discussion platform. It's simple and makes learning fun, fulfilling and empowering. Again, if you're using Google Classroom, you can now sync up to 500 learners from your classroom list with Flipgrid to grant your learners direct access to Flipgrid discussions, and there's no email domains or usernames required. On this website, you would post your discussion topic and you can include specific details. You can add links to other websites, include video links to forums and so on. You can then share the discussion topic with your learners by either having your class set up, or you can make the discussion topic public where a join code would be required to access it. Learners would then reply with a video, and there are a host of options available on the website, just like there are with things like Instagram, TikTok, etc., to make it more exciting. It could also be used to demonstrate a certain skill, either in terms of preparing for the synoptic project, either, for example, demonstrate static, dynamic, and explosive muscle strength. You can then provide feedback to the learners, either by video yourself or via a text comment, and you can include grading criteria as well, such as rubrics. And you can also search for some pre-made topics, as well as get some ideas of things you could do, or use the ready-made ones and assign them to your learners. And it also might be worth remembering that the advisory age limit for these social platforms is 13 years old. The website mentimeter.com is an interactive and online presentation software program, and it's free, but there are some limitations with the free version. Mentimeter can be used in real-time classwork and live remote lessons. The interactive element allows questions to be submitted, quizzes to be taken, and much more. You can make an unlimited number of presentations, but in a single presentation, there is a maximum of 2 questions and a maximum of 5 quizzes per presentation. The questions can be submitted anonymously, and there is a profanity filter too. Microsoft PowerPoint has an add-in that allows you to insert Mentimeter slides into your presentation, but if your centre has restrictions on that, then there are some other ways of inserting it. Mentimeter can be used for external assessment revision and a quick recap or review quizzes. And one of my favourites was having my health and fitness quiz ready for the learners to complete as an entry or starter activity. Kahoot is a game-based learning platform that makes it easy to create, share and play learning games or trivia quizzes in minutes in classrooms and at home. You can create a fun learning game in minutes, and these are called Kahoots. The format and the number of questions is up to you. You can add videos, images and diagrams to your questions to increase engagement. Kahoots are best played in a group setting, and to join the game you need a unique PIN. And if you're the host of the game, you will really probably need a big screen. Players answer on their own devices, such as their mobile phones, while questions are being displayed on the shared screen. In addition to live games, you can also send Kahoot challenges that players complete at their own pace, for example, for homework or remote learning. After a game, you could encourage players to create and share their own Kahoots as part of their revision plan. Instructions on how to create Kahoots on your computer or in the app, as well as playing a live Kahoot, are available on their website. Quizlet is another good revision tool and includes digital flashcards, matching games, practice electronic assessment and live quizzes similar to Kahoot, as well as new expert explanations. There are study sets created by teachers, lecturers and other students, or you can easily create your own. Learners can revise at home, school or on the go with the mobile app, and can choose which of the Quizlet's 7 different study modes works best with their learning style. It can also be used for whole class participation. Quizlet also tracks their progress and provides instant feedback about where to focus on. Another one, Hot Potatoes, also enables you to create interactive multiple choice short answer, jumbled sentence, crosswords, matching and ordering, and gap fill exercises. And with science-backed revision methods that improve active recall, Quizlet and those that I've mentioned, they're designed to save you time. Okay, as we've come to the end of the webinar, I would just at this point like to do another quick poll to see how confident that you're feeling now with the preparation and revision for the external assessment. Same before, 1 being no to little confidence and 10 being very confident. The responses are coming in thick and fast, and it's really pleasing to hear that we have a really high percent of feeling a lot more confident. Okay, so on your screen that you can see, that we have 11% that are feeling 5 to 6, 59% feeling 7 to 8, and a much improved score of 30% now feeling 9 to 10. So thanks everyone for your responses, and I'm really pleased that that people are feeling more confident. Obviously, some of the scores, if you're still feeling 5 to 6, 7 to 8, there may be still some questions that you may have, which is what I'm going to lead on to next. So at this point, I'd just like to say thank you for your time today, and I hope you did find it useful. As mentioned earlier, if you've asked questions via the question box already, then I will respond in a timely manner after the webinar. As well, please do feel free to add any strategies that you use and find effective that I've not mentioned today that we can share with other participants. And again, if you do have any further questions, you can either pop them into the chat box now or contact me in the future using my email, which is kellyjohnson@ncfe.org.uk, or if I am unavailable, our general email is provider.development@ncfe.org.uk. And also please do visit ncfe.org.uk/vcerts for more information on our V Cert Technical Awards. Lastly, as mentioned earlier, I've also included some of the useful references for you to refer to if you require further information and support. At this point, please do feel free to leave the webinar, and I do appreciate it if you could complete the evaluation that will pop up at the end, and this will help us improve our service and the support that we offer. Again, thanks everyone, and on behalf of everyone here at NCFE, we do wish you a safe and successful year.